Thank you. I propose to deal under Lord Mayor's business the issues surrounding reports 277 of 2025 and report 278 of 2025. Earlier today, I received a detailed legal memorandum from our law agent, which now I understand has been circulated to all members, regarding the statutory procedure for changing place names under Part 18 of the Local Government Act 2001 as amended. The memo makes it clear that the legislation governing place names changed in 2019 and that the procedure now set out in Section 189 must be followed in full, including a resolution containing specific statutory particulars, a public consultation and, if required, a public plebiscite conducted under ministerial regulations. As the law agent has confirmed, those regulations have not yet been made, and therefore there is currently no legal basis for holding such a ballot. That means the statutory process cannot be completed. It is also evident that reports 277 of 2025 and 278 of 2025 before the Council this evening do not take account of this statutory position and do not contain the information required for members to adopt a valid resolution under Section 189. I want to be very clear and blunt with you all. I am annoyed, frustrated, fed up that this is now where we find ourselves, that this is the position where we now find ourselves in. But in light of the advice provided to me by both the law agent and the Chief Executive, I do not believe either of these reports should have been included on the agenda for tonight's meeting. As Lord Mayor and Chair of this Council, I am obligated under standing orders to ensure that our meetings are managed correctly and that every agenda item is legally constituted. In the case of the Herzog Park and the Diamond Park reports, it is clear that they are not legally sound. Therefore, it is not appropriate for me as Lord Mayor to allow these reports to be moved or voted on. For that reason, I am proposing that report number 277 of 2025, the proposed renaming of Herzog Park, Dublin 6, and report number 278 of 2025, proposed renaming of Diamond Park, Dublin 1, be withdrawn from consideration this evening and remitted back to the next meeting of the Commemorations and Naming Committee to be held on December 15th, 2025. Furthermore, I have accepted the second emergency motion submitted this evening in the names of Councillors Perry, Ring, Reddy and Doolan, and I propose, as part of the discussion that we will now enter into, I propose that emergency motion be taken with that. Before calling on all group leaders for 2 minutes, and then I will then open it up to all members, as the usual 1 minute, I will ask the Chief Executive to make a brief statement. I will be very clear with all colleagues. You will have 5 seconds after your allotted time to finish up before your microphone will be switched off. Okay? So everyone is clear of how we are proceeding tonight? Clear? You mightn't agree with it, but that's what I'm proposing. And I'm now...
Lord Mayor.
Who is that?
Apologies, it's Councillor Janice Boylan. Can you just make sure that I'm noted as attendant, please?
Absolutely. Janice, we have you down.
Gurmagut.
Mayor, can I just come in on the point of...
I am loath to open up points of information before the Chief... Right, I'm letting...
I think it's pertinent
that would you just... Hang on.
Sorry.
I'm letting two.
Yeah.
Councillor Cooney and Councillor Perry. That's it. And then I'm open to the Chief.
It's not part of the debate. It's just, as the chair of that naming commemorations, I just wanted to make it clear that I was not party to this information that has now come to light that I only saw in the press release. And I want to make that clear. So I was going on the basis of the information that had been provided to me at the time.
Councillor Perry, Kieran.
Just a clarification, Lord Mayor. There's an emergency motion. I'm assuming that the proposer can speak separately than the contribution from the group. Is that correct?
Yes, that is always the case. Absolutely, yeah. But it'll be given that there's 4 signatories, I'll ask that there's 1 proposer. Is that okay? So will one of you indicate who that's going to be? Perfect. Okay. Chief Executive.
Lord Mayor, councillors, I'm going to start by reading into the record the statement which I issued yesterday evening. So the authority to change a place name is contained within Part 18 of the Local Government Act 2001. The process involves the adoption by resolution of a proposal to substitute a new place name by the elected members, the holding of a public consultation and a secret ballot of qualified electors should a proposal be approved. While the provisions of the Act were commenced in 2019, the regulations required to govern the process for a secret ballot are not yet in place. The report to the elected members does not take account of the correct statutory procedure and is missing information for a valid resolution to be adopted. Therefore, in the circumstances, I am proposing to withdraw the report from the agenda with the recommendation that the matter be referred back to the Commemorations and Naming Committee for consideration of the statutory procedure. On behalf of the Executive of the City Council, I wish to apologise for this administrative oversight. A detailed review of the administrative missteps will now be undertaken and a report furnished to the Lord Mayor and councillors. And I suppose just to follow on from that, Lord Mayor, I do pride myself in getting the basics right, and it has been one of my things, largely about the services that we provide. However, that also, getting the basics right of public administration is very important, which we failed miserably to achieve. I take full responsibility for the systemic failure in this regard. And then, Lord Mayor, just to address the issues in the emergency motion, and I went through this briefly as group leaders today, just a sequence of events. On about 7 o'clock on Saturday evening, I received a call from the Secretary-General in the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage, inquiring if what was being proposed was legally sound. I advised that from what I had seen and heard, I thought it was, but I endeavoured to check. So I made contact with the law agent and the Deputy Chief Executive asking that question at 7:20. At 23:30, I received the advice that had been given to the area managers back in October 2023. Having read the advice, I formed the opinion that we had walked ourselves into a legal problem. The following morning at 9:30, I spoke to the law agent to ensure I had interpreted her advice correctly. Having confirmed that our process did not take account of the statutory process outlined in Section 189, I attempted to contact the Lord Mayor and Secretary-General to advise. I eventually spoke to the Lord Mayor at 1 p.m. on Sunday and advised of the potential issue with proceeding with the two items in question. At 2:10, I contacted the Secretary-General to ascertain if any progress had been made in respect to the regulations necessary to give full effect to Section 189 of the Local Government Act. He advised that the relevant regulations had not been enacted. Throughout yesterday, I made many calls to the law agent, the Deputy Chief Executive, the Meetings Administrator, the Deputy City Librarian, the Media Office, the Secretary-General in Housing, Local Government Heritage and the Lord Mayor. The only politicians I spoke to were the Lord Mayor, Councillors Moriarty, Cooney, Barron and Doolan. At no stage did I make or receive calls from national political figures or any of their advisers. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Chief Executive. So, in light of the proposal I've put, I'm now asking, is that agreed? Not agreed. Up to group leaders. Councillor O'Rourke.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, these are two separate and very different issues, and we do acknowledge on behalf of the Fine Gael group that some people will be disappointed that there's no discussion. However, we absolutely agree that this should not proceed tonight if it's not legally sound. Just in relation to the Herzog Park renaming, this came as a surprise to me on Thursday. But look, because we were told it came through a process and that it would be voted upon and decided and debated and scrutinised tonight, it's something that I accepted, and therefore the Fine Gael group would vote no tonight to it. But it appears over the weekend, and we were landed with this as councillors to find out that the process wasn't robust, and that here I have in front of me from the South East Area Committee a motion asking for a report, and then we end up where we are now. I don't understand it on this process and how we got to this point, and we need to find out how this happened. Lord Mayor, in 1995, Quarry Park was renamed Herzog Park after Chaim Herzog. And it wasn't just after one name, it was to reflect the long-standing contribution of Dublin's Jewish community in our city. So is it any wonder that the Jewish community in Dublin might see this as an attack on them over the past few days? Not only with the naming of the park, but also that there was no proposal to rename it to a Jewish or Hebrew name. How do you think that might look to the Jewish community in Dublin and Ireland? This is more than a park or a green space. It's directly beside Ireland's only Jewish ethos schools, and it's long safety,
Thank you.
and dignity that the Jewish community.
Thank you, Councillor Rourke. Thank you, Councillor Rourke. For the Social Democrats, Councillor Cat O'Driscoll.
Gareth Magad Arvera. I'd like to go back to where these initiatives came from. They came from the communities. And as a council, we have let those communities down by not putting an appropriate process in place that meets the legislative needs. I only found out this morning that the Minister hasn't enacted rules that would enable us to rename infrastructure. And I looked at the agenda last week, and my group met and talked about it, and we thought that we could contribute very constructively about a very inclusive public engagement, that we discussed that we want the Jewish community to feel part of that public engagement, and that we could find a name of a great Jewish Dubliner that we could name this park after, and lots of ideas were coming through. But instead, over the weekend, we were absolutely put in a state of whiplash with how this process has been put forward. And all of the attention is on a park in Rathgar, when there is also a park in the heart of the North Inner City that is looking to commemorate a boy, really, Terence Wheelock, who died in police custody in quite mysterious circumstances, and whose family continues not to have answers about what happened. And that community want to commemorate and ensure that his name is never forgotten by putting it onto a park that is also a community facility. And I guess we're at a loss. We still want this process to go ahead. We want to rename these parks. And at this stage, we're being told that it might only be a symbolic gesture because the process hasn't been followed. And finally, I am genuinely shocked that the chair of the Naming and Commemorations Committee was not adequately engaged and informed, not just about the decision this evening, but apparently in the process going back months. And I don't think that's good enough. And I think councillors, particularly in chairing positions, need to be given all of the information to make sure we meet the needs of our communities. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor O'Driscoll. For the Sinn Féin Group, Councillor Doonan.
Good morning, on third there, and good morning to the Chief Executive for the information. I checked my emails. I still haven't received any legal opinion. Maybe I've lost it somewhere. I got lost.
It was circulated by Lorraine Brogan's office.
It was sent to me, okay, but I haven't seen it. So it's very hard to make a decision about legal opinion I haven't seen. I suppose Sinn Féin are supporting the emergency motion, but also we are calling on the Lord Mayor to ensure that we have a debate on these two items, and they remain on the agenda for tonight, despite the commentary from the Chief Executive and yourself. I'm very confident that it should go ahead. When we look at what happened in Cork City in 2021, when they renamed Anglesey Street to Terrace McSweeney, they voted on it in the full knowledge. It hasn't been actioned until the amendments are passed to the most recent Local Government Act. So we can wait for central government to enact them. and then we can proceed with the actual, the proper actioning of it. But why do we get here today? Because of the Area Committee and the Commemorations Committee. This isn't owned by any one political party or any one group. Everybody in here has been part of the process, from the Area Committee debate to the Commemorations Committee to here tonight. It's on the agenda in the full knowledge of all political parties. All council groups were part of this process, and we applaud people's engagement in the process thus far, and we should be allowed to continue with that debate. And then on the substantive issue of why we want to rename the park, because Chaim Herzog was implicated in terrorism, crimes against humanity, in driving Palestinians from their homes, and we want to make sure that the park is named after somebody from the Jewish community or otherwise that we can all celebrate and be proud of. Max Levitas, Robert Briscoe, there's several people, Esther Solomons, plenty of Jewish people who have been born, lived and were active in Dublin, and we can all hold our heads up proud when the park is named after these people. But as it stands, we'll be calling for the removal of the name Herzog Park and replace after consultation with Dublin City residents, and a name we can all celebrate and be proud of.
Thanks, Councillor Doolan. And for ease of reference, Natalie will provide you now with a copy of the legal advice so you have it yourself. For the Green Party, Councillor Horner.
Thanks very much. Yeah, look, we're happy to agree that these shouldn't proceed this evening. We do have issues with the report as it was going to come before us tonight. The lack of engagement and scrutiny of this through the officials, which should have done their due process as they would in any other naming recommendation that would come before us. As area committee level, as anything else, officials have a long record and normally do a very fine job in bringing forward a scrutinised, analysed report that understands the full issues involved. Like further issues, it doesn't reflect the motion that was even brought before the South East Area Committee, which asked for a return of a outline of a process. That's not what happened. Like the motion was ignored, and then an alternative process was brought forward. I think I also just want to mention, like I and others, I think, are struck by the depth of hurt and personal appeals that have been made to us over the last 48 hours since these reports came to light. I think I really want to thank people who have shared deeply personal stories of hurt and concern that they have, and thank you for reaching out, and thank you for sharing what is very difficult subjects to talk about a lot of the time. I think further, just any decision that we take has to be taken on the back of a sound process and clear deliberation, particularly in any case, but particularly when it deals with an issue as sensitive as this one. And I think I brought a motion forward about 3 years ago now, which has gone nowhere, around the education of the public around the names that are lent to our streets, because as Councillor Doolan had mentioned there, so like not just this park or not, and particularly not this, but so many of our streets are named after individuals that have deeply problematic views and have had very troubled histories. And to zone in on one without embracing the others is problematic. And what we can do and what we should do is seek to educate the people, as I tried to bring forward a motion on a few years ago.
Thank you very much, Councillor Horner. Thank you. For the Fianna Fáil group, Councillor Darrell Barron. Darrell.
Thanks, Lord Mayor, and just to thank the Chief Executive for his apology this evening. Just on behalf of the Fianna Fáil group, we looked at the report. It isn't good enough. I said it at group leaders today, it wasn't good enough. It's a fiasco. And it's, again, the executive manager responsible for this. It's not good enough. Simple as that. We have a polarised situation in their city. People from all walks of life, the Jewish community are hurt, and many others are hurt right across the city because of incompetence from someone that should have done our job in the first place. And at the end of the day, as a council, we need to stand up and be accountable to the city that we represent. Lord Mayor, the community that is, the issue for me, Herzog, the way I look at it is, it's an issue for us as a council to deal with, but the process, the due diligence from start to finish hasn't been acceptable. What I would ask, Lord Mayor, is this would be sent to protocol, investigated thoroughly and reported back within a period of time to deal with this, to find out why this happened from start to finish. It is not good enough that what has happened. Out of respect to the councillors, every single one of the 63 councillors here, the report that was in front of us this evening was not good enough. A one-pager is not good enough. You need to look at the historic facts, the facts of the matter is that that report was not good enough. Again, I look at the community, I look at the people that I've talked to over the weekend. This has gone everywhere. It's gone right across the world. And again, as a council, we need to ensure that this never happens again. And I think from the Chief Executive, you can clearly see that the apology is genuine. But what I will say is that we need to look at this wholeheartedly as a council and make sure this is never done again. Thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Councillor Barron. For the Independent Technical Group? Yeah, sure. Councillor Lyons. Do you want to? Yeah, you can touch it, yeah. No. There you are. We hear you now, John.
Thank you. Okay, well, firstly, I think we should apologise to the family of Terence Wheelock, because that family are the collateral damage in this situation, and I think it's quite appalling that that's arisen. Again, that family have been traumatised enough by the state, and here we are this evening. Secondly, if my understanding of Richard's remarks are clear, it was the intervention of a senior civil servant in the government, in a government department, which actually brought to light a technical issue that somebody should have been made aware of. This issue has been live for nearly a year through the council, through area committees, and it's been discussed here before. So I think there has been political pressure from central government brought to bear. And if I think about the actual issue at play here, let's be quite clear, because there's a lot of correspondence coming into us. The issue of naming a park after a person who spent some of his time in Dublin, who then decided to travel to Palestine to join a terrorist Zionist organisation called the Haganah, to work with the British Army in crushing the Palestinians when they rose up in 1936, who then rejoined the Haganah to take part in the ethnic cleansing of 750,000 Palestinians during the Nakba, the catastrophe, and then, as the first military governor of the West Bank and East Jerusalem, forcibly expelled 200,000 people from East Jerusalem into Jordan. That person should not and should never have had the honour of having one of our parks named after him. There are many fine Jewish people right throughout the history of Dublin who would be better served of having a park named after them. So I think to see the intervention from the central government and from others decrying this issue and trying to conflate certain issues has been appalling to my mind. And I think, Chair, on this, we should deal with the issue. We should go ahead, in principle, discuss the two reports and then retrospectively sort out the technical issues that need to be resolved in time for that. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lyons. For the Labour Group, Councillor Moriarty. Dara.
Thank you. Thanks, Lord Mayor. We'll be supporting the proposal to withdraw both items on the basis that they're not legally sound. I do just want to share the point made by Councillor O'Rourke regarding the process by which we went from a motion at the South East Area Committee requesting clarification that the process in 1995 was what that process was and that it was followed correctly. That's what the question emanating from the motion from the South East Area asked. And I just struggled to see how we went from that to where we've now got to with a renaming proposal coming here without the support of the local area committee. I do also want to express Labour Party's full sympathies with the Wheelock family, who have waited such a long time to have their own tiny little bit of symbolic justice that we're trying to provide today, while they wait the outcome of hopefully a public inquiry into what happened to their loved one. But if we look at that example, that was fully supported by the Central Area Committee, went to the Commemorations and Naming Committee, and then came forward to full council. That has not happened in the South East Area, and I think we do have to be deferential to the local councillors who are closer to their constituents and closer to the needs of the local communities when it comes to renaming issues. So that is something I would like to see happen in this instance. I appreciate that your proposal, Lord Mayor, says it should go back to commemorations. I also think it should go back to South East Area for further consideration. We absolutely sympathise with some of the sentiment in the emergency motion. We do think some of the overreach was absolutely outrageous over the weekend from the Taoiseach, from the Minister for Foreign Affairs in particular, from other senior members of government. Outrageous. They're entitled to ask that we take action here. We ask that they take action at all the time, but they shouldn't interfere and try to pull their way out from under us. Thanks very much, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Moriarty. For the People Before Profit Group, Councillor Reddy.
I want to start just by acknowledging Sammy Wheelock, who came here tonight very disappointed after months, if not a year, of campaigning where he gathered thousands of signatures in the North Inner City to rename the Diamond Park. I want to acknowledge the work of the local community as well, many thousands more signatures online. I think it's a real tragedy that we've lost that proposal, and hopefully we will be able to get back to it in the very near future. This year is the 20th anniversary of Terence's death, and it had a really special relevance to the family that this proposal be heard and passed by the end of the year. It's been, I think, a remarkable 24 hours, but a remarkable year too. Through that year of process and procedure, I many times reached out to officials and councillors, won't name names, for clarity on how this would proceed. At various points there was no engagement whatsoever. At other points I was told that the correct procedure is to go through the SPC and then bring it back here. Now we're here with, I think, a misinformed report that can't actually get the job done. We will, however, be calling for a vote tonight. I totally reject the charges of anti-Semitism that have been levelled at myself, others, and campaigners outside this chamber, especially those in Jews for Palestine Ireland, who played a particularly important role in all of this. I think the renaming of Herzog Park, it's not about anti-Semitism. It overlooks those Jewish Dubliners. It overlooks the real motivations, the mass expulsions, the violence that John Lyons mentioned a second ago. I think it also, the charges of historical erasure, what's brought to mind for me is the villages of Lidda, in Waz, Ascalon, places that have lost their name to history because of the role that Chaim Herzog played in ethnic cleansing, in genocide, in racism and apartheid. I don't think we can honour such a person in our city. I think that the international response here is interesting in itself, unprecedented, you might say, and I think it's unprecedented because it calls into question the historical logic of Zionism that extends far beyond what's happening in Gaza, and it shows the state of Israel itself is illegitimate.
Thank you, Councillor Reddy. Thank you. And for the unaligned group, Councillor Steenson, is it?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Firstly, the Chief Executive has indicated that he was contacted by the Secretary General and that you weren't contacted then afterwards by any senior government or any national figures. Can you confirm whether you were contacted by anybody associated with them, either directly or indirectly? Now, in terms of Terence Wheelock, who died on the 16th of September 2005, 20 years ago, and people like Joe Costello and myself were out protesting and demanding at that time a full public inquiry into what happened in Store Street that night, and we're still no nearer that. And it's a shame that it has come to this. In terms of Herzog Park, we're here trying to rewrite history yet again. History is history. And by changing the name of it, you're changing and putting today's values on something that happened many years ago. The same people who demanded that statues be taken down from outside Shelbourne Hotel till they discovered they had nothing to do with slavery and had to put them back up. This is more performative nonsense from people. And what is needed, and I mean, even today we see people demanding that the Sean Russell statue in Fairview Park be removed. And let me assure anybody here who's of that view, Sean Russell won't be going anywhere. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Yeah. Guys,
well, we've suffered it. Where were
colleague, councillors, if you want to have a sidebar, there. If you want a sidebar, there's the door. I'm not having this, right? I'm going to ask. There's a number of questions before I open it up to the wider floor. There will be a number of specific questions and suggestions made, and I'm going to ask the Chief Executive to respond back. Chief.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I suppose, Councillor O'Rourke, how did it happen? That's what I want the review to do. And you might say, once that is finished, we will circulate it to all. In terms of the poor process, Councillor O'Driscoll, absolutely. And I'd like to put on record my apologies to the Wheelock family for the absolute failure, as I said earlier, on the systemic failure. And, you know, hopefully we'll be able to rectify that at protocol. That'd be my think is the way to do it. I only found out that Councillor Cooney hadn't been furnished with anything when I spoke to Councillor Cooney last night. So, from that perspective, Councillor Cooney, apologies on behalf of me and my team. At no point in the legislation does it allow us dename something without offering an alternative. Whether we like it or not, that's the way it's written. Councillor Horner, yeah, as you said, there's in other areas we've had a good track record, but again, this has just been appalling. Councillor Barron, yeah, you could use any adjective you want to describe this. It just is a very, very poor look by the City Council's officials, not the elected members. So we'll get into it and we'll find out exactly, and then we'll come back. Councillor Lyons, just in terms of, yeah, I mean, it's a genuine apology to the Wheelock family. In terms of, I wouldn't say it was an intervention by the Secretary General. He asked me a question. He wasn't doing it on behalf of anybody. He asked me a question. I said I would go and find out. I thought we were okay, and then when I found out we weren't, I informed him, and that was the long and short. There was no other contact. I don't think it's possible to retrospectively fit the process here this evening because we need a map, don't have one on hand, and that's for both of them. Again, there's the issue around the Irish language, and we need the Irish Development Unit just to make sure that we get it right, because if we're going to try to do something, at least, to get it in a state where if the legislation or the regulations are brought into effect, that it can actually happen. Yeah, I mean, Councillor Moriarty, I think you've hit the nail on the head. How did it get from the southeast area to where we are now? That baffles me. So, again, that will form part of the review. Councillor Reddy, yeah, I don't disagree with your description of remarkable 24 hours. Did I enjoy it? No. But I'm not doesn't matter what I think. I'm responsible for the administrative failure, and quite happy to accept that responsibility. And Councillor Steenson, no, other than the people I've named, wasn't contacted. There was no pressure, soft, hard, or otherwise brought to bear. Okay, thank you.
Can I just clarify? There was a Councillor Doolan raised the issue of Anglesey Street and in Cork. Now I understood there was they proceeded there. But I think if I'm listening correctly to what you've said, because of the statutory process, not only in terms of the consultation, Councillor Doolan, but I understand in terms of the failures with regards to the statutory process itself in terms of this issue. That's why this is different to the Cork City Council issue. Am I correct in that interpretation?
Yeah, I mean, the correct information isn't before the elected members in the reports. That's the long and the short of it. Whether you decide to do something when that's amended and properly before you, that is a matter for yourselves. Now that we're very, very familiar with what the process is, the difference in Cork is that they passed the resolution having had all the relevant information to hand, but they were advised by the relevant Director of Service in November 2021 that it could not be progressed because the section in the legislation had not got the ministerial, and that's a bit more complicated than we think.
Thank you, Manager. I'm going to call on Councillor Perry and the signatory to the motion, and then so everyone else. I'm just going to ask the Councillor Perry's microphone is switched on. No one else touch theirs. I'm going to let Councillor Perry move the emergency motion, and then I'll open it up to everyone else through the system. So we'll do the chamber first, then follow up online. Is that okay with everyone? Perfect. Councillor Perry.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, everybody has an emergency motion in front of them, or hopefully it was circulated. So rather than waste valuable seconds that have been counted down, I'll make a couple of important points on the emergency motion. The first being the disgraceful intervention from Micheál Martin and other, the Taoiseach, the Taoiseach and other senior ministers. I would classify that as amounting to political interference in the business of a local authority. The optics would appear to show these senior Irish politicians carrying out the instructions of the Israeli lobby, and it's very hard to argue with that view when we see the actual result. The other extremely important issue is the slanderous accusation of anti-Semitism thrown against those of us who support this motion. And I just highlight that equating opposition to genocide and the deliberate murder and starvation of children with anti-Semitism does a serious disservice to Jewish people actually suffering anti-Semitism. And conflating anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism damages the battle against actual anti-Semitism. And I would ask people who claim to be trying to tackle anti-Semitism to take this on board. Councillor Lyons and Councillor Reddy have already mentioned Herzog himself and the disgust in history that resulted in him being the focus of us trying to dename the park. And I would ask here people who say history is history, would we be happy to have a park dedicated to Oliver Cromwell or a statue to Oliver Cromwell? The ridiculousness of that argument is unbelievable. The last point I'd like to make is the process. This process didn't start in the southeast inner city. This process was in train for at least a year and a half. The independent group had put a number of emergency motions that didn't meet the criteria for procedural reasons. We were directed to the Commemorations and Naming Committee, and that's how the process began. There was a motion from the South East Area Committee that helped the process. The process wasn't clear. We were waiting for advice on the committee, and as far as we know, everything we did was correct.
Thank you very much, Councillor Perry. So we're going to start then with Councillor Blaine. Hang on, don't touch. You were the first on my list here, so just hang on. There we go, we're back.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm stunned at how we got to this point. As others have said, how did we get from a motion asking for clarification on a procedure into a vote on renaming a vote which it turns out would have been in direct contravention of any procedure? The irony is baffling. As elected members, we rely on the executive to ensure that proper statutory processes are followed, that full information is provided, and the proposals are legally sound before they reach this chamber, and that simply did not happen. If we were in a position to be voting on this renaming tonight, I would not be supporting the proposal to rename Herzog Park. Like all of us here in recent days, I've been contacted by many members of the Jewish community in Dublin and the wider community of Rathgar, whose families live in the area and whose children attend the school beside the park. For them, this has been deeply hurtful. And it's important to recognise the nature of this particular place. It's not a street, a statue or a plaque, it's a park where children play.
Thank you, Councillor Blaine. Councillor Mannix Flynn.
Thank you. Come on now. Look in your rearview mirror, damn it.
Can we reset, Councillor Flynn?
Where's your rearview mirror, damn it?
Reset. There we go. Mannix.
Okay.
Now,
thank you very much, Lord Mayor, and thank you very much, Chief Executive, for the report, and thank you very much, administrative staff. I'm very pleased, that someone has taken full ownership and responsibility of this particular issue, and that we now own this. No one else owns this but us. So we take full responsibility, and I support my Chief Executive, Mr. Richard Shakespeare. I also support you, Lord Mayor. An administrative error took place, and this administrative error would have been a blip until Taoiseach and indeed on Taoiseach began to go onto the radios and televisions and inflame the situation, unnecessary so. I would ask, Lord Mayor, that you would write to both the Taoiseach and the Taoiseach and ask them to reflect on their language and to temper the language, particularly in this particular incident. I certainly heard the Jewish people of Dublin. I certainly heard what they had to say. They're neighbours of mine, they're people that I lived with all my particular life. But I've also heard the dead of Gaza. I've also heard the dead children. I've heard them as well. And this is a park no different than Aung San Suu Kyi or any of the other issues that we had, or no different than the Arcane Band and their uniform.
Thank you, Councillor Flynn. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Flynn. Thank you very much, Councillor Flynn. I'm going to go online then. I have Councillor Micheál McDonagh agus Comhairle Christy Burke. Comhairle McDonagh.
Agat ardmhéara agus bhailim taú leis an brún éigeandála agus iríar an Comhairle Dularaig leis an ceist seo. As a member of the Commemorations and Naming Committee, I want to question the legal advice we have received, and I'll be asking that the Commemorations and Naming Committee is given independent legal advice on this. I think it is very unquestionable. I would also like to express confidence in the chair of that committee, Councillor Donna Cooney, and I think that the way that the coherence of the committee was bypassed was unacceptable in this whole process. It seems very clear to me that both the Taoiseach and the Taoiseach over the weekend fell in line with the Israeli government's line that any opposition to Israeli government policy, even the most horrendous, up to the genocide, any opposition to that is branded as anti-Semitic. And that's what happened here. We've heard very clearly from other councillors exactly what Chaim Herzog was responsible for in his career. That's unquestionable. And that's the reason it was inevitable that the naming of the park would be challenged in the context of genocide.
Thank you. Comhairle Christy Burke. You're on mute there, Christy.
Thanks, Lord Mayor, and I want to thank the Chief Executive for making an apology to the Wheelock family who were in the audience. And 20 years ago, myself and the late Deputy Gregory spent many days and nights outside the Store Street Garda station in relation to the death of Mr. Terence Wheelock. And, you know, at that time, there was lots of Garda intimidation between Fitzgibbon Street and Store Street. So we weren't strangers to the protests. Also, could I just ask if the manager, did any of his assistant managers get any political phone calls from senior ministers, junior ministers, or Choctaw in relation to this issue? I mean, Mr. Micheál Martin has not learned from the mess he made of the Gavin presidency, and that he's put his 2 feet right into it again. I was blue in the face listening to him on every news bulletin and every newspaper throughout the weekend. He blew this out of proportion, and he cannot be allowed to dictate to elected members of Dublin City Council, and that should be made very clear in any correspondence, Lord Mayor, that you will have with government senior figures.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Former Lord Mayor Christy Burke. Councillor Kieran O'Meara, followed by Patrick Kinsella.
A quick question for the Chief Executive. How often does the SecGen in the Department of Housing ask whether an item on the DCC agenda is legally sound? Fine Gael said there's been no alternative Jewish renaming proposed. I suggested the name Max Levitas in the Commemorations and Naming Committee over the summer. You can watch the video back. Max Levitas, a Jewish anti-fascist, a trade unionist and a city councillor. The family and friends of Max Levitas have been contacted in recent days, and they have said enthusiastically they would support the renaming in his honour. And I think it would be fitting to rename it in honour of someone like Max, someone who has made a positive contribution to the world, not somebody like Herzog, who commanded soldiers, who raped, murdered and pillaged innocent civilians. We have people like Lindsey Graham browbeating DCC over this. Lindsey Graham, who suggested Israel should drop a nuclear bomb on Gaza, who said they should do to Gaza what America did to Hiroshima. This was a full court press by the Zionist lobby, and they think they will win it. They will not win this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Meara. Councillor Patrick Kinsella, and then back online to Councillor Janice Boylan.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, I'm not entirely sure how we ended up in this place, but I do think it would be a mistake to rename Herzog Park. Were this to happen, I think it would compromise the existence of generations of Jewish Irish people in Ireland and diminish enormously their rich contribution to the broader culture of Ireland. Are we going to rename Camden Street and Georgia Street, Marlborough Street, and indeed Cromwell's Fort Road? These names like so many others, date back to colonial times and are part of our history, like Herzog Park. Thank you.
Councillor Janice Boylan, online.
Look, people have covered other stuff, but I just want to say that, look, apologies are not easy to make, but equally they're not easy to take either. And it's Terence Wheelock's family, friends and our community that I feel absolutely gutted for. It's heartbreaking to be sitting here and this has happened on the 20th year anniversary of his brutal death. I fully support the family and my community with the naming of the Diamond Park after Terence. And look, it's very embarrassing to say the least at how this has materialised and hugely disappointing, but also a little bit unbelievable that we want the public and the councillors in this chamber to trust everything that management has said in here tonight. The way it played out in the media and the language that was used by senior members of this government was appalling. I do support the renaming of Herzog Park because we can look at another Jewish person. There's after being other names that were mentioned in this chamber this evening, and I think that the calls that anybody that supports the renaming are anti-Semitic is.
Thank you, Councillor Boylan. Councillor Rory Hogan.
Cheers. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Over the weekend, following the strong public reaction, I went to Rathgar and I knocked on a number of doors. I spoke with several residents and members of the community to hear their views directly. The overwhelming concern was, and one that was common amongst all members of the community, was the complete lack of consultation. People were frustrated to discover the proposal through the Irish Times and through local WhatsApp groups, and many felt they were hearing about it at the 11th hour. I believe we can do better than that, and I trust that we will. What also became apparent over the weekend is that there are very few public spaces that acknowledge the contribution of Jewish people to our city's history and culture. There are, in fact, many remarkable individuals whose names could and should be considered for future recognition. Many of them have been named tonight. And finally, I do want to be clear that the outcome of this debate should not in any way diminish the urgency of recognising the atrocities taking place in Gaza. We should continue to pursue a way in which we can honour and remember the thousands of civilians who have been killed and the children whose lives have been destroyed. But if we are to create a meaningful memorial or a place of solidarity, let it be in a location of real significance to all.
Thank you, Councillor Hogan. Councillor Cian Farrell.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I got about 400 emails in the last 24 hours about this. I'm sure a lot of us did. But I think just reflecting on it, it took away the nuance and the complexity of the issue, and it forced us into this binary choice of you are voting for or voting against. I think the media and social media also didn't help. So if you're voting for the renaming, you are anti-Semitic. If you're voting against it, you're anti-Palestine. And I think that we've two communities here, the Jewish community in Ireland and also the Palestinian community, and we have a duty of care to these. I think we need to do better as an executive and also better conversations in this chamber. Thank you.
Very much, Councillor Farrell. Councillor David Coffey.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I too am opposed to renaming of Herzog Park. I don't see any real positives that will come from that. Another name hasn't even been proposed. Many suggestions have been thrown out there. I do see lots of negatives. I don't have the time to go through all those negatives now. But for me, the primary negative is the hurt this seems to have caused the Jewish community in Dublin. These are people, Irish people, who live in our community, work in our community, and have done nothing wrong. And I don't think anyone's intention here was to bring hurt upon them, but that is an outcome of what we've done here. I too read every single email that came into me over the weekend. I went through every single one of them. And the one thing I noticed was most of them were a cut and paste job. Anybody who actually told me that they go to the park and they're from the area, I'd say 95+% of those were in favour of keeping the name. So I think it's important that we listen to the people in this community. They didn't want a name change. It shouldn't be imposed on them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Coffey. Councillor Dermot Lacey.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I'm not going to engage in any blame game here, and I also want to thank the hundreds of people who contacted all of us in relation to this. It's good to see that citizen engagement, irrespective of whether I agree with them or not. This proposal did not come from the local community. Let's be clear about that. This proposal came from a legitimate campaign. I'm not knocking it, but it's not a community initiative. It did not come from the local community. I actually am maybe slightly different here from everybody in that I actually welcome the Taoiseach and the Minister's engagement on this issue. I now look forward to them engaging with us on housing and finance and traffic and all of the things that actually matter to this city. So maybe we should encourage them in that regard. I oppose this motion. I oppose it at the Naming and Commemorations Committee because I don't believe you can rewrite history. And I think the Herzog family are an important part of Irish history, and I will continue to believe that it should be acknowledged through the naming of Herzog Park.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lacey. Councillor Alifield.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Chief, for your apology. I'm just wondering, with the government reaching out on this, like with the legislation, I wonder how long it would take for that to be signed off. You know, how long would that take? Also, to Terence Wheelock's family, I mean, this is just so bad. 20 years, they don't have answers, and now this happens. It's just a disgrace. But anyway, that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Field. Now we have Councillor Gavin Pepper.
I was going to say next.
Ali, will you just off your mic? There we
Thanks,
go.
Lord Mayor. Yeah, first of all, the council altogether owes a massive apology to the Wheelock family, to Terence's family. Like, it's embarrassing that this council, that this happened. There's a lot of councillors in that area that have been working with that family for 2 decades, and all they wanted is a simple justice for the young man. And tonight, it's an embarrassment for them, and it's all over the world on the media because of a park, a different park, that people want to change the name of. But, you know, we need to ask ourselves, what is classed as anti-Semitism? Because a councillor in this chamber was on national radio this morning, and he said that when he was asked, should the state of Israel exist? He said, no. So I believe in a two-state solution. I believe people should look at this, and the legal tech should look at it properly. But it's shocking what goes on in this council, and we owe the Wheelock family a massive apology, and every councillor should be apologising to them.
Thank you, Councillor Pepper. We have already had Councillor. Sorry, point of order.
Here, Maureen.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just want to correct the record there because I believe there's an accusation made against myself and a question that I answered on radio this morning. I was asked to, I believe, that the state of Israel has a right to exist. The answer that I gave is a very qualified one. It was that any state that is involved in genocide, ethnic cleansing or apartheid has no right to exist in a civilised world. And I think that was true of apartheid South Africa. It's a qualified statement and it's an important one.
You've now made your response back.
But there was a charge of anti-Semitism made, so I just wanted to put that on the record.
Hold on, lads. You have both now had your chance.
I wanted to put this on the record.
If you want,
and actually there was anti-Semitism in this chamber a couple of months ago too. There was anti-Semitism in this chamber a couple of months ago, and where it came from wasn't this side of the house or me.
I'm dealing with this now. So you've got a chance to respond. You've got a chance to level your accusation. That's it. Councillor Dunn. No, Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, I'm convinced that if there was only one motion on tonight's, or one report on tonight's agenda, and that was to rename Diamond Park after the Terence Wheelock, that we wouldn't be having this discussion. There wouldn't have been a telephone call from the Secretary-General. I'm further convinced that whatever phone calls was made to our CEO and to other officials probably emanated from Israeli intelligence forces attached to the Israeli Defence Force, because they're active. They're active in every issue that comes up in relation to Palestine. And trace it all the way back, Richard, and you'll find that's the source. I would vote for both motions to rename both parks, and hopefully I'll be given that opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Councillor Dunn. Councillor Daniel Ennis.
Thanks, Chair. And look, thanks to Chief Executive for the apology. It's about the only apology the Wheelock family have got in 20 years. And look, the lack of mention by other reps, especially those who represent this area for the Wheelock family, is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. That family, 20 years of pain and hurt. Their child was taken away from them, 20 years of pain and hurt, in deeply suspicious circumstances. We know what that means in Store Street Police Station. So the fact that it's been grouped in where anything else shouldn't have been done. It shouldn't have been done. And Councillor Dunn is right. If it was just a working class family from Dublin 1, a rename of a park, you wouldn't have heard a whisper from the Taoiseach. Not a whisper. And again, the Wheelock family haven't heard a whisper in relation to any of this from any authority. So thank the Chief Executive for that. And look, in relation to the procedure, where do I start? It was an absolute shambles. On a Saturday night, there was a call made to remove agenda items from government representatives. That's it, in its entirety, you know. And when has that happened? So if we allow this, we set a dangerous precedent for this council going forward. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Ennis. Councillor Leslie Byrne.
Thank you. I'd just like to echo the comments that have been made by my colleague Daniel Ennis there, and pass my sympathy to the Wheelock family. It must be unthinkable what they're going through. I'd like to ask, did the Deputy Secretary General actually make an inquiry about both parks, or was it just about one park? Was there, given their interest in local council issues, was there any inquiry about what might happen to the family in Labrador Park who were a victim of an arson attack and are at risk of homelessness? I'm wondering, did the Minister for Social Protection have any interest in the families who are telling us they're going to be forced into further poverty due to the rent review increase? And it really, and there's a question mark after this statement for the record, but it really strikes me of the different demographic of the constituencies where both of these parks exists, and it yet again consolidates possibly the sense that there's some members of society that are deemed more important and more valuable than others, depending on what their area code is.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ring. Councillor Ring.
First of all, thank you, Chief Executive, for the apology to Terence Wheelock's family. And what Councillor Ennis said, I fully support. It's just an absolute appalling situation. He's got an apology now from here. Now he needs an inquiry, so he can rest. But going back to the Herzog Park, I've been on this chamber for 3 terms. This is my 4th, and I know some of my other colleagues are here much longer. I've never seen a situation where a motion that we put forward, a duly proposed motion, has been, we are told by the Taoiseach of our country to withdraw it in its entirety and not proceed with it. That's a quote. Then that motion he mentions will, without any doubt, be seen as anti-Semitic. That's, again, unprecedented. It's a profound, unprecedented and political attack on my integrity, the integrity of anybody who supported that motion at our commemorations committee, and an attack on our character, and he should withdraw that immediately. So I'll leave it at that, Lord Mayor. I'm appalled by what has happened here. Gormagat.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor Blaine, you've already spoken. Councillor Michael Pidgeon.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think we've all been let down procedurally here, and I want to say I support the renaming of the Diamond Park. So it's not my area in that sense, but to me it makes sense. I have to say that on the other issue, the other park, I respect every opinion I've heard here sincerely, and I don't doubt any motivations, but I would ask people to tread softly on this. Like, really, read the emails. Like, the suffering and the genocide visited on the people of Palestine is the central issue. And I'm proud, like in Ireland, we've had relative, I think, cohesion compared to other countries on this, and that's a good thing. But like anyone with an ounce of empathy or thought can see it's a difficult time to be a Jew in Ireland. Even if you fully agree with the pro-Palestinian analysis, it's an uncomfortable, hard time. And park names are symbolic, and that has downsides. But one of the upsides is that, unlike practical issues, you're not forced. Your hand isn't forced. You can choose things a bit more. You can choose the points you want to make. And I don't think this is a wise one to choose. If you look in your inbox, it's such a tiny community in Ireland. We probably have 2 to 3% of all Jews living in Ireland have emailed councillors, I would guess. It's a rough estimation. We should listen to them. They're the experts.
Thank you, Councillor Pidgeon. Councillor Cooney.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I'd like to apologise to the family of Terence Wheelock, and particularly Sammy Wheelock, who had written to me, back in May, and I really felt that we were following through the procedure, as I was told, as I was informed. I was informed that came as a motion, and and we supported it, and we felt, for that, if we can't go ahead straight away with the naming, there's no reason we can't put a commemoration in the park, and we'll do that, and we'll know, it'll be known as the Terence Wheelock Park anyway, So I just feel really bad for that. I feel terrible as the chair because I feel as if I've let people down, even though I just went on the information that I had. And, I like to do my job properly, and I can only do it based on the information. I was informed that it was a motion that came from the South East Area Committee as well, and I went on that, and I went on the base that it must have local support, and we did want it to be not an online survey that was done, but a door-to-door survey, so that we were conscious that it was the
Thank you, Councillor Cooney. Thank you, Councillor Cooney. So Councillor Janice Boylan has spoken. Councillor
No,
Mannix.
it's actually me.
Sorry,
there's no room at the inn up there, so
There's
I
no
moved
room up there.
myself. Thanks very much.
There's only one Janice Boylan.
I know.
Councillor Courtney
Close
Kenny.
second. Thanks very much. So I would like to welcome the apology from the Chief Executive as well, and the clarity around the legal position. I also welcome, Donny, your apology. You know, you can only go off the information that you're gotten, and really and truly, I think you've put your point across. I'd like to extend my own condolences to the Wheelock family. I marched with them there during the summer, and you could still really feel the pain and the angst, left with no answers. It's cruel. Just around the issue with the legislation now, so can we now, as a chamber, write to the Minister to make sure that those regulations are now set out for holding a secret ballot and providing for prescribed persons to be notified in the eventuality to change these proposals? I don't want that held over us. If that's a power that this chamber has, then we should have it fully rolled out to us, and it shouldn't be withheld for any reason. Additionally, was there a lack there of information being attached to the report, or is it more a substantive issue on the legislation? And I would also like to ask, if it is referred to the Commemorations Committee again, can we also get a reassurance that this isn't a reversal of a decision?
Thank you very much, Courtney. Then we have Councillor Flynn. Hold on, Councillor Flynn, you've spoken already a minute.
Just very briefly.
So just give me, Councillor Jackson hasn't spoken at all yet. I want to make sure that everyone who hasn't spoken has an opportunity. Councillor Jackson. Max, will you just turn off your mic a minute? Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, I wasn't going to speak on this because I thought it was a very interesting topic, but coming towards the end of the conversation, I don't think there's been a member has mentioned the annihilation of tens of thousands of children in that part of the world in Palestine. It's unforgivable what's happened there. It's quite evident some of this is a backlash of what's happened there. The name associated with the park, the current president of Israel, signing missiles that, looking over the last few days online, almost glorifying what military occupation in that part of the world is doing on the Palestinian people. I was speaking at a graduation in a school in Ballyfermot a couple of weeks ago, and I said, but for the grace of God, where we're born in this world, we could be so unlucky to be born in other parts of the world. And I'm going to just finish my remark to say, whatever the hurt that the small Jewish community have in Ireland, unfortunately, it's insurmountable compared to what it's to the parents, to the families, and for the generations to come in that part of the world. We know from the north of Ireland, if there's ever to be a real sustainable peace, people have to sit down, but they also have to put their hands on the table.
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Now, there was two other contributions I see here, Councillor Lacey and then Councillor Flynn. Is there a particular point of order or kind of
Lord Mayor, given that I think there's across the Chamber agreement that the memory of Terence Wheelock should be honoured, can I propose that the suggestion made by Councillor Cooney that some form of acknowledgement of Terence Wheelock would be erected, placed, I don't want to draw up the scheme here now, in the park pending the longer term development of the name, because I think all of us believe that what happened to Terence Wheelock was wrong, and that we should at least mark it in some legal way.
As Lord Mayor, I want to do something now in a moment. Councillor Flynn.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I'd like to put on record that I have every confidence in my chairperson of the Commemorations and Naming Committee, and that this all took place because of an administrative error where legal information was not given to us, or was given to us and we were never made aware of that situation.
Thank you.
I'd also ask, Lord Mayor, that the law agent would read into the record their advice as opposed to the CEO. I think it's important that the law agent, who we rely on, read into the record the legal information that we have, because as I said, another councillor wants independent legal advice. So it needs to be really clear who's making this advice. Thank you.
So just I was going to speak to the Wheelock family at the end of this debate, but I think it's important that I do it now. So to Sammy, to Sinead and to the wider Wheelock family, as Lord Mayor of Dublin and as first citizen, I want to sincerely apologise for the hurt, the disappointment caused by the proposed withdrawal of this report renaming Diamond Park. On foot of the legal advice provided to me and the Chief Executive, I do not believe the City Council is in a position at this time to lawfully decide on the proposal, and the report therefore cannot, I believe, be debated as you had every right to expect. This is a failure on our part as a City Council to ensure that the process was fully in order before asking you to engage with it. I am genuinely sorry, and I want to reassure you that this decision is not a reflection on your family or the merits of your campaign. Therefore, as First Citizen and as Lord Mayor, I'm prepared and offer to meet with yourselves this week with Councillors Reddy, Ennis, Ralph and other members from the North Inner City to see what alternative ways we can commemorate the memory of Terence while we resolve these issues under the legislation and the other issues that have been identified in the legal advice tonight. But I believe it's important, as Lord Mayor and as First Citizen, to issue that apology directly to you tonight. Moving on. In terms of the proposed, there's a number of questions first that I will look to have addressed. Firstly, the one thing I'd point out, and the Chief would be more comprehensive, Corlor McDonagh referenced the possibility of a second legal opinion. As you'll all be aware, that is available under Section 132 of the Local Government Act 2001. There is a clear procedure outlined in standing orders that may be open to the Commemorations and Naming Committee, but there is a process and a procedure there. In terms then of the questions that were put directly by Councillor Field and Councillor Kenny with regarding the timeline, I've already indicated that I will be writing to the Minister to establish what has caused the delay and what the indicative timeline is, and I'm prepared then to circulate copies of that corresponds with all members as I would normally do on this instance. Chief Executive, do you want to come in at this time? Sorry, and I will also be writing to the Taoiseach and the Taoiseach, and I will be taking up Councillor Lacey's advice as well. Thank you. Yeah. Is there a point of order, Councillor Steenson? You want to use your mic?
Sorry, Lord Mayor, could I come in with a point of information?
Councillor Steenson first, then.
Can we ensure that when these matters come back before this council, that they're separated, that we don't have Herzog Park and the Wheelock?
Yeah. I think it should be a point of principle going forward. One of these per council meeting, we shouldn't be doing it where possible, but that's a matter of protocol. Councillor Hogan, on a point of order?
Yep. So I actually got this legal advice last year when I asked to change the name of another road. I followed up with the Minister, and then the Minister said that he can't make the amendments to legislation because they also need amendments to legislation in the Department of Culture, Arts, Gaeltacht, Sport and the Media. So could you write to that Minister as well? Just as they need, there's 3 pieces of legislation needed to pass.
I shall take Councillor O'Driscoll's suggestion under advisement and write to the Taoiseach in respect of all matters. Chief Executive.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, councillors. I don't disagree with you, Councillor Perry. I mean, this is just, as I've said throughout the meeting, this is just, an administrative missteps, and there were various points in the process, just from a cursory look at it, that we should have done better. I won't comment on carrying out the instructions of the Israeli lobby, and you might say, in terms of, the advice, you have the legal advice, and there are methods to get a second legal opinion, should you require one. Then, just looking at the questions, Councillor Burke online, I asked my colleagues, had any of them received any contact on this issue from any part of government, be it administrative or elected, and the answer is no. Councillor O'Meara, on occasions I do get phone calls. I always treat them with caution. But it wouldn't be, on an everyday basis. And you might say, but in fairness, I just...
Sorry, whoever's got the phone, switch it off.
I just have to take the Secretary-General at his word that he was looking out for me. In terms of, Councillor Dunn, I don't know whether my time would be better spent doing something other than trying to investigate whether the Israeli state is putting people up to that to contact me. And then in, the only other bit I have there is the Councillor Field, how long will the regs take? Well, that will be a matter for Ministers Cleary and Brown to sort out amongst themselves. And I don't think there were any other questions there, Lord Mayor, but that we definitely can write, and the Lord Mayor's agreed to.
Sorry, there was a question for me, actually.
Yeah.
Did the Deputy Secretary-General inquire about both parks or just Herzog Park?
He inquired about both.
About both parks?
Yeah, just that, because it was the same process.
Okay. And so the coincidence of the Taoiseach and the Taoiseach making a statement on this, and the Secretary-General came in then on both parks, not just the one park. That's what you're clarifying tonight.
It's the same process.
It's the same process. He came in on the process.
On the process.
And was it legally sound?
Right. Okay.
Now, I formally put a proposal that we refer both reports 277 of 2025 and 278 of 2025 back to the Naming, Commemorations and Namings Committee. Can that be formally seconded? So, sorry. Referring them back, remitting them back to. Pardon? Yeah, we're going to come to that. Yeah. Is that agreed? Agreed. Okay. Is that not agreed? Roll call vote? Okay. Roll call vote.
Okay. Thank you, Lord Mayor. So voting
Sorry, Lord Mayor, a motion has been put, right? Debated. Surely the motion should be taken first, because if the motion is passed, the referral back means nothing.
Sorry, I moved the motion first. In my opening statement, I moved the motion. I accepted it as part of an emergency motion. I accepted it, but I moved the motion to refer both reports to the Commemorations and Naming Committee, and on that basis, that motion goes first. That's precedent. I'm following. You know me. I play by the rules. Okay. So, can we now proceed to the vote, please?
Okay. Councillor Amar Ali.
Agree.
Councillor Darrell Barron.
For.
Councillor Rachel Batten.
For.
Councillor Emma Blaine.
For.
Councillor Janice Boylan.
Against.
Councillor Kevin Breen.
Against.
Councillor Noel Brown. Against. Councillor Christy Burke.
Against.
Councillor Claire Byrne.
In favour.
Councillor Danny Byrne.
In favour.
Councillor Leslie Byrne. Against. Councillor Mary Callaghan.
Against.
Councillor Hazel Chu.
In favour.
Councillor David Coffey.
In favour.
Councillor Anthony Conaghan.
Agreed.
Councillor Fiona Connolly.
In favour.
Councillor Keith Connolly.
In favour.
Councillor Donna Cooney.
Donna.
In favour.
Councillor Ray Cunningham. Councillor Hazel de Nortoon.
Against.
Councillor Dahi Doolan.
Against.
Councillor Pat Dunn.
Against.
Councillor Daniel Ennis. Councillor Keane Farrell. Councillor Alison Field. Councillor Declan Flanagan.
In favour.
Councillor Mannix Flynn.
Against.
Councillor Deirdre Heaney.
In favour.
Councillor Jessalyn Henry.
Against.
Councillor Rory Hogan. Councillor Janet Horner. Councillor Vincent Jackson.
Against.
Councillor Felgen Jose. Councillor Leslie Kane. Councillor Courtney Kenny. Councillor Patrick Kinsella. In favour. Councillor Dermot Lacey. In favour. Councillor John Lyons. Councillor Aoibhinn Mahan. Councillor Micheál McDonagh.
Gwynedd.
Lord Mayor Ray McAdam.
In favour.
Councillor Seamus McGrattan. Councillor Paddy Monaghan.
Favour.
Councillor Carolyn Moore.
In favour.
Councillor Edel Moran. Councillor Dara Moriarty. In favour. Councillor Claude Nivery.
In favour.
Councillor Cat O'Driscoll. Councillor Kieran O'Meara. Councillor Colm O'Rourke. Councillor Gavin Pepper. Councillor Kieran Perry. Councillor Michael Pidgeon. Councillor Gail Ralph.
For.
Councillor Poonam Rane.
For.
Councillor Conor Reddy. Councillor Neil Ring. Councillor Aisling Silk. Councillor Supriya Singh.
In favour.
Councillor Carl Stanley. Councillor Malachy Steenson. Deputy Lord Mayor John Stevens. Councillor Philip Sutcliffe. Thank you.
Sorry, Lorraine.
Sorry, guys.
Just in case you didn't hear, in favour.
Who's that? Councillor Aoibhinn Mahan?
Yeah, thanks, right.
And Councillor Daniel Ennis?
Yeah, against, Lord Mayor. Thanks.
Thank you.
Lord Mayor, Deirdre Heaney, did you hear me? I voted in favour.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, thank you, Deirdre.
Hang
on there a sec.
The vote is 35 members for the motion to withdraw and 25 against and 1 abstention.
Therefore, the reports are remitted back to the Commemorations and Naming Committee. In terms then of the emergency motion, in light of, I'm just going through the points here, Councillor Perry. I've already said that I'm happy to write to the Taoiseach and Taoiseach as been asked of me, and that's what I'll do. The comprehensive report, I think the Chief Executive has already outlined that. I think you've done that in terms of item 3. And then in item 4, to proceed with all reserve functions, the fact that the motion I've proposed now supersedes section 4. So, is that okay? Okay, motion falls.
Motion falls.
Chair. Motion falls. Because the item 4, because it's superseded by the motion to...
How is it in conflict?
Because you're looking to proceed with all reserve functions and including the consideration of this place name change proposal. We have...
In accordance with the whole point of it was...
Verb.
In accordance with the correct strategy procedure. We're not disputing that. We just want to make it clear that's the reason why.
In that case, then, that can be, I think we can all just accept. Motion agreed. Right.
Okay.
Sorry. I just wanted to be...
Sorry, Lord Mayor, just the legislation doesn't provide for denaming anything.
Kieran.
It provides for substitution, not denaming, okay, to substitute the name. So there's a subtle difference there. So that, we're not empowered. There's no legislative power to dename something. You can agree to substitute, but you can't agree to dename in isolation.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd need a change.
It's change. So I really don't want to reopen this whole thing up again. Just hang on one at a time. But use your microphone if you've a point of order. Councillor Cooney.
Yeah, just on a point of order. So what was the issue with the Diamond Park and the township? Because that was a substitute of a name. Was it the process? Just to be clarity, because it is
statutory process.
So the process has to be different in the same that it has to be 50% and it has to be. So can
Both
we have
proposals
that clearly pointed out in points what that process would be to come to the next committee, so that we're very clear and we don't make a mistake again. Thanks.
Councillor, yeah, I'll ensure that there's full guidelines.
But in the meantime, I expect to either include yourself, Councillor Cooney, as chair of the Commemorations Committee, but with Councillors Reddy, Ennis, Ralph, and then the North Inner City councillors, I propose then and happy to engage with the Wheelock family here and Councillor Moriarty as the chair of the SPC and the Central Area Scrone Committee to bring the meet in the Mansion House to see then in the interim what further recognition can be done. Is that okay? Councillor Ennis? Just someone, Councillor Ennis's microphone. There you go, Councillor Ennis.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, can we ensure that that is before the end of the year, because the 20 years is of massive significance to the family.
I will be following that up myself in the morning.
Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Excuse me. I think that is sufficient for Lord Mayor's business.
In relation to the meeting of the chairperson of the Commemorations and Naming Committee, can that be the whole committee? Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Just in relation.
We just take a minute, 2 minutes. I just have to take advice here a second.
Yeah.
So Councillor Perry, Councillor Ring, Councillor Reddy and Councillor Doolan, in order that to be fully adopted and in line, there is a need for the recognition of the wording in terms of denaming to can't be denaming substitution. So if that is amended, then that can be passed by the council. Is that it? So if you want to get the precise wording, I'm happy to read that into the record before the end of the meeting. Is that okay, Councillor Flynn?
Just very quickly, I just wonder, would it be possible for the complete commemoration